let me, I'm not going to just sit here and read. We're going to talk about conflict management. We're limited to the amount of time, so if you want more information, you can call us anytime. To give you a little plug for what we do, your company offers a benefit through our company, the EAP. So if you need assistance with anything, including conflict management, that's actually probably one of the biggest things that we work with, because where does stress and anxiety come from? A lot of times that's tied in somehow to relationship stuff. And so communication is always a big part of it. There's no charge for you to call us. There's no charge for you to see our folks. We can see you virtually or face-to-face. The face-to-face is subject to change. That depends on local laws and regulations. Our offices are very clean. I will tell you that we have had, until recently, no COVID in our office, and that was 3 weeks ago. And we've all been tested. But we've gone a whole year, nobody testing positive except one person, so we're kind of proud of that. So we guard, we're very careful with social distancing, and a lot of. Pens are wiped off, everything is very clean. But if you just prefer virtual, we can do that too. Realize there may come a time when the government goes, okay, you got to do it this way. All right. Okay, so how about that? Really, when you run into somebody who you feel is difficult to communicate with, then view it as a challenge. You got a choice how you look at it. Your behavior is going to impact their behavior, most certainly, but it's not your job to fix everybody else. So I'm also, as you know, a big believer in a sense of humor. All right, so fix what you can, but sometimes don't let difficult people drive you nuts, because that's you then. When it gets in here and we have this feeling because of what we're saying to ourselves, okay, we get away from the facts very often. Did any of you hear Jaquan when she came here last time? Some of this stuff is you're going to see a repeat of. Okay, I pulled a couple of slides from her presentation, and I'm going to use them here. So I think that's a nice segue. But conflict management, assuming you're in a good place yourself. Now, you gotta, the basics, take care of yourself. If you are not eating right or sleeping right, you're not gonna be at your best. You might think you are. Most of the time we tend to be a little cranky. So set your time to manage a conflict. It doesn't have to be managed right then. All right, there's a lot to be said for walking away so that you can collect your own thoughts and come back. All right, and we'll talk more about how emotions play into that. But I always think when I look at this statement up here, I had the Corps of Engineers are one of our clients. And there are these two security guards downtown that used to be down there. I don't think they're there anymore. They are just grumpy, can't get them to smile, and people, like at their health fair, okay, everybody was complaining about these guards. Now, number one, that's not going to do us much good, right? So I took it as a challenge. I am going to make those suckers smile before I leave for the day. And I did. Now, that just helped me. I'm not going to let it bother me so much, but I find it very satisfying if somebody's talking to me and they're grumpy or depressed or sad, and they're smiling when they walk away. Actually, that's a large goal of therapy, too. We want you to come in and feel better. Now, how many of you are married or in a long-term relationship with a significant other? Raise your hand. Keep your hands up. How many of you with your hands up have never had a conflict? Wendy's hands up too. With the person you live with. So, how much time do you spend at work? More time than you spend at home? So is it surprising?
Will you take your mask off? It's hidden.
Is it surprising that we're going to have some conflict with people we live with at work? You live together, really. And yes, I know things have changed a little bit in work from home, but you're still caring You're still caring for the children, okay? Anyway, it's no surprise. There's going to be a conflict. So it can be managed, and there's your choices. Think about that. That is really true. What else are you going to do? I mean, what else are you going to... This is all fixable by you. This is your role in a conflict. Now, can you always walk away? No. But I really am a big fan of walking away just for a minute to gather your thoughts. There's some people, and all right, this might embarrass Wendy, but I think Wendy, first of all, she's about the most brilliant woman I've ever met. Second of all, she seems to be very well thought out and, you know, not impulsive and not just screaming out stuff. That's what we want to do. You want to think about, have a plan, Stan. Okay? And I say that all the time about you too, really. So there's obviously some thought going into these conversations. Now, because your moods impact your behavior, that's why you want your behavior. That's why you want to choose your time to talk, right? It's kind of like when a parent goes, all right, you go, or time out, you know. There's really a reason you're doing that beyond punishment. It's now's not a good time to talk. So you decide what you want to do. Now, if you do nothing, then you can't complain about it. Okay? You know, all right, I'm going to use this example. My husband has had some health problems. So yesterday, his balance is off. All right? What are you doing for your balance to get better? You're losing your right to complain if you don't do something about it. Okay? So, and that really is true with everything. And again, sometimes it is best to walk away. If it's a repeating issue, come back and revisit it. How many people in here are management, besides the people okay. Especially to management folks, you want to make sure if a conversation is started that you go back and revisit it. Okay, and make sure that a plan was followed. Don't just talk and do nothing, because then you're going to have a big negative impact on morale. This is just one of I like this quote. Okay, everybody's ignorant only on different topics. So lest we think we know it all, we don't. We don't. And this is another big mistake that a lot of us make with conflict. Again, if there's some space before you get into it, you're probably going to be able to do this. But think about how often, why are you raising your voice? Why are you doing that? Because you think the other person isn't? I want to be heard. It's my way. Well, wait till that feeling goes away a little bit. And then have a conversation. I think I put a slide in here that says, the madder, if I didn't put it in here, this is another good quote, the madder you are at someone, the harder it is to hear them. All right, that anger impacts your hearing. Well, Austin, did I hit a bad button? Oh, look at that. Good timing, Patty. Okay, so here you go. Now, I will say with regards to that avoids escalation, some people seem to thrive when everything's boiling. Those are toxic personalities. And the worst way for you to manage that is to mimic their behavior. The work for your own mental health, and for them, and for the relationship. But I'm assuming, hopefully, most of us in the room don't like to fight. You know, we don't want that escalation. So your goal is going to be to bring people down. Again, that's a lot of what you do in counseling. And by the way, I don't always do all of this in my personal life either, okay? So to management and to the rest of you, you want performance to improve. Definitely how you feel with your relationships can impact your performance, not only at work, but at home too. So there's a lot of good for you in this too, is what I'm saying. It's not just all behave this way for somebody else. This is equally, or even more importantly, good for you. So what do you think the answer to this is? 7% of what is communicated is communicated by tone of voice. The words that are said are nonverbal cues. 7%. What do you think? What did you say?
B. C.
Okay.
I'll say C.
Okay. Now, 55% communicated, and this research holds today. We continually, regardless of how the world changes, how the environment changes, we keep seeing this. So 55% is communicated by what? Nonverbals or tone of voice? Okay. So what you say is really, you know the expression, not as important as how you say it, which means there's the arguments for self-care. Check yourself first. Don't try to fix the world's problems if you've come to work or into any relationship, sleep deprived, food deprived, too much going on. Let's make it manageable. Be in the right frame of mind. If you truly want to manage a conflict, you have to be in the right frame of mind. And that has everything to do with us. Yes, sir?
Are there some guidelines on try to maybe do some self-assessing on how do I know I'm in the right frame of mind to manage conflict? Questions I could ask myself or something like that, or?
Let me think of that. Let me think of an answer to that. Some ways you can check your own state of mind.
Yeah, to be able to manage this conflict or this conflict at this time.
That you're getting, first of all, that answer is going to differ very much by individual people, because some of the things I say you wouldn't recognize in yourself. Like if you're snappy. Well, I don't think I'm snappy. I don't want to say just feedback from others, but look at others' reactions. The reactions you get from others should say if you are checking some of that in yourself. To answer, is there an objective test or an objective, okay, I can ask myself this? No, there's really not. And there probably never will be, because that's too much like patient heal thyself, It's very hard to look at ourselves. That's something my husband likes to point out with me is, don't you teach people this? Oh yeah. Was I doing this? And honestly do not have awareness of myself or even realize it at that time. So I would say rely on the reactions you're getting from other people. I can tell just by nonverbals, for example, all right, the reaction that what I'm saying is having on somebody else. But sometimes that can be somebody else's problem and not your problem. You see what I'm saying? So I'll think about it, but I don't really think there's a good way to assess that. Get feedback from trusted peers. Go to Sarah and say, how do you think I'm doing?
I don't have to ask, she'll tell me.
Or your spouse. But there's a lot to be said for direct communication. I personally, and it's the healthier way to have a relationship, is to be upfront and honest. What you see is what you get. Now, except for you, are you the only guy? Boy, you're in a minority. We tend to be pros with passive-aggressive behavior. That's so unhealthy. I mean, it really, really is unhealthy. And I'm not saying he doesn't do it, some men do, but as a rule, women tend to be worse about that than others. Okay, so back to the nonverbals. You're going to feel better talking to her or him? I mean, really. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to know them. We don't have to, that's just the nonverbals. Those guards that I see when they've got a long face on and they can't even smile. A smile works wonders, by the way. I'm not talking about a sarcastic smile either. Okay, so 38%, whatever. A large part of what is communicated by tone of voice. I'll tell you something with nonverbals with me. All right. I am farsighted. So if I put my glasses on like this, you know what it's like. I can't see you, right? But I need it to see what I'm looking at here. So when I talk to people, I don't do it anymore because I was corrected. I look over my, I tend to look over my glasses. Well, I've heard it from not just my children, but your children are going to be real honest, right? Mom, you look mean when you talk that way. And I've noticed the reaction at work. It's completely different if I look over so I guess I do look mean that way. So to improve how I communicate with others and to get better reaction from them, I don't want people to think I'm mad if I'm not. And it actually takes a lot for me to get mad. Stern probably is, I don't doubt but I didn't even wear glasses when they were growing up. So this is an adult comment. Mom, you look mean, take them off. So during counseling, I make it a point to take the glasses off and put them down. If I find myself doing that and notice the reaction, boy, Patty, you look so serious. Take the glasses off, it's a complete different look. So I'm relying, Austin, like you were saying, I'm relying on feedback from other people. Okay.
Patty, I had a tip one time, and actually it was, I don't know if you know Dan Lumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan Lumpkin is also a counselor.
He's great. I love him.
He's great. And one of the things he suggested, if you have to answer the telephone, I used to keep one on the desk when I was a daycare director.
A mirror.
A mirror. Just check your face. Check what you look like when you're walking somewhere. Just check as you're walking by, what do you look like? He calls that your resting face.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband has a naturally downturned mouth.
He does, yeah.
So he typically has a very solemn face.
He does look serious, I'll agree with that.
But now when people walk up to him and say, "Sir, are you okay? Are you mad?" He says, "No, this is just my resting face."
That's Joe, I swear to God. Okay. Yes, the mirror's okay. Now there's going to be some people who are not going to do that. But I tell you another little hint too, when you're talking, and that was one thing I wanted to talk about, is all the different kinds of communication, especially now when it's more, especially COVID now. Evil. That was a Freudian slip. Email. We're sending so much email. You would not, and a lot of teams are communicating, even Microsoft Teams, right? We're communicating so much that way. You would be probably surprised to hear about the workplace relationships who have become very tumultuous because of emails. And mostly it's just people fire them off. They don't think to sound kind. Let me tell you something we have offices in Aruba and Curacao, and I learned pretty fast that they use WhatsApp, not text messages, okay? So I learned pretty fast when in Rome, right? I copy them. In America, if we're part of a team and we're working, we'll send texts. We don't start and say good morning and wait for a response. Not in America, we don't. We're Zooming, okay? No offense taken most of the time here. But I really like something they do. If they want to get my attention, our folks down there, they will first, and this is just what they do. I've been there long enough now to know that. They don't just fire off a WhatsApp. They start by good morning, bon dia, bon tardi, always. And they wait for a response from me before they continue. Now that took a little getting used to, okay? Because if I need something from them down there in my American way, it's kind of like I just want to get the answer or pick up the phone or whatever. They prefer using WhatsApp. Well, so maybe we can learn from that. Think about how you're talking in email. Please and thank you goes a long way. To whomever, dear whatever, it only takes a second. I don't know, I like to get the emails with people who put quotes under their signature line. to me, that's a neat way to close an email. But all the different ways we communicate, and if you're talking on the phone, you want to sit down. The mirror is a great idea. Some people like me, I don't want to ever look in a mirror again.
Well, I had the other thing, the Zoom calls, we were all sitting there and you get a really good visual of your face and, just remembering to smile and
That's right.
hold your head up and, I think if we pay attention to that, it could help us in
That's
our
right.
day.
That's right.
Just to imagine yourself on a Zoom call, how do you want to look?
And we all look at that, don't we? Does anybody not turn on the camera and go, how do I look, before you're ready to join the call? Okay?
Mostly, but we got a few.
Yeah, well, I know. So have I had a few, yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. So, but nonverbals are so important that I do not, as a rule, I will if I have to, but I'm not doing counseling just on the telephone. I want to see your face. Face-to-face is preferred, but if I got to do we don't use Zoom, of course, but I'll say Zoom. We use a HIPAA secure platform. But if we're going to do a virtual session, I want to see your face, because that says so much to the counselor. So much. That's almost like, that's the first thing we're looking for, body posturing, body language. Okay, so be careful with your tone of voice, too. All right. I broke this up this way because I really think we all ought to do this. Here's a little trick. First of all, do not send an email when your emotions are up here. Don't do it. Just make it a rule. Here's my rule. When I respond to an email, if it's, I don't want to say if it's of importance, if I think I may need to give it some thought before I send it, I don't even put who it's to. I just save it as a draft, because I don't want to send it accidentally, actually. And that makes me go back and look at it. There's been more than one time that I've said, I don't think I'm going to send that right now. The tone doesn't sound very good. Okay? So stop and think. First of all, is face-to-face better? With conflict management, it probably is. And we have enough virtual tools where we can do that. Okay? So don't just get mad and zoom out an email, because it may haunt you. So watch your tone, watch your pace, watch your posture. You have a posture. Nobody in here? Well, hold your posture. Everybody except her has an open body posture. Okay, see how she's sitting? Okay, and I'm not, excuse me for picking on you. I don't really believe that it means I am not listening to her and I don't care what she has to say.
No, that's Hannah.
Well, Hannah might be a little shy. Hannah might be a lot of different stuff. She might be cold. She might, And therein lies the danger of making immediate assumptions, too. So there's a little counseling trait. Just back up a second and ask yourself, what's the evidence for this? Because a lot of trouble starts when we're just making it up in our head how somebody is, and that's by God what we know, and that's what it's going to be. Well, wait a minute. I'll tell clients or my students when I teach psychology, show me the evidence. What's the evidence for that? And guess what? There usually isn't. One of the big rules is no mind reading. Although tone, pace, posture, all of that's important, you still don't know what's going on in the other person's head. And maybe that other person doesn't know they look mean when they're looking over their glasses, okay? So here's my point in this. How we manage conflict is learned. We almost always think about I don't want you to stay here because it's not a pleasant thought, but think about a conflict. Think about a conflict that you've had. Think about how you handled it. Now go back and think about how your parents handled conflict. Now, hopefully we've become better than our parents and our children, better than a lot of. But that's where we learn our conflict management skills, you know. They're learned from your parents. A child learns to communicate by the psychological mirror of their parent. That's how they learn to talk to others. That's how they learn to talk to themselves. Okay, so here's my point. If it's learned, we can unlearn it. So I'm trying to teach you conflict management skills. I would guess some of this is kind of probably preaching to the choir, because I hope, and you probably already do practice them. Okay. Now, true or false, opposites attract. I think I brought this up when I was here, and Jaquan should have, I think. But opposites attract, true or false? That's right. We are overwhelmingly attracted to people most like us. We agree with people who are most like us. Now, I just challenge you to know that we do that. That's our inclination. And recognize, if you're doing it, that especially if somebody has very different views than you, whether it's in the workplace or at home, there may be a little conflict, which doesn't have to be a bad word. You can work through conflict. There is something I do recommend, though. I have people come to me quite often and go, I don't like confrontation. And I'm like, let's get confrontation out of your vocabulary. Let's replace it with conversation. There's a difference between a confrontation and a conversation. So I don't like the term. I just don't like it. All right, now, this is just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, communication, that is the root of the word. What do we have in common? Again, much easier to communicate with somebody who agrees with everything you're saying. Much easier. And your nonverbals are that's what people are going to notice. That's what's sending your message out there. Here's some rules. Don't do it. Just don't do it. These are big no's. Well, except for the last one. You're going to judge. But I have a word I want to say about that. So you just don't do that stuff. Don't, finger point. Diverting can be good if a conversation is going nowhere. Just try to change the topic and bring somebody back on course. Now, with judging, we all judge people. You judged me. How long does it take you, for those of you who have never seen me, how long does it take you to form an opinion of me? What do you think?
3 minutes.
That's about it. 3 minutes, she said. That's right, 2 to 3 minutes. However, if you decided that I'm, an evil witch, I'm saying question yourself and give me a chance. Okay, just question your judgment. That's what separates thinkers from non-thinkers. So we all judge, just be careful what comes out of your mouth and question that judgment. And there you go again. What is the evidence for that? Okay, that's what I wanted to say about, okay, now, God, that's just it. Now you have to value this whole conversation we're having to want to do this. Again, look at it as a personal challenge, but what you say can have a big impact on what's going to come back at you. Now, this is not in the presentation, but I'm going to give you a little hint. If somebody gets on a topic and just won't stop, you ever had that happen? No matter what, you're using all your tools, they're just not going to quit. I got something that's going to make them quit every time. You have to hang on and stick with it. It's not that easy, but use what's called the parroting technique. Just say the same thing. I hear you, but, with a child who's going to argue about riding their bike out in the road. Now we're talking about adults here, but to use a child example. I don't want you to ride your bike in the road. But Mommy, I'll be careful. I hear you, but I don't want you to ride your bike in the road. But Mom, I hear you, but I don't want you to ride your bike in the road. How long are you going to argue with that? About as much as I just did with myself. 3 times and it's going to be... Now, I don't think that... I'm not saying do that first. It's when all else fails. Don't start sentences with you. That's just a big no-no. It puts other people on the defensive almost immediately. It's verbal finger pointing. And over and over again, we think, I don't care if you've lived together for 100 years. How long have you and Joe been married? It's been a long time. 50? Okay.
Last year.
Whoa.
I still can't do his name.
Whoa. Thank you. Did you hear what she just said?
Yep, it's different every day.
She said, I still can't read his mind. I still can't read his mind. And she really can't. Oh, I guarantee you she slips in. She thinks she knows what he's thinking sometime. I'm guessing that would probably happen. Well, we make that decision about coworkers quite often. They look like they're mad. I know they were talking about me. How do you know they were talking about you? You don't even know what they were saying. You weren't right there. How do you know that? And why, if somebody's off talking in a corner just because they glance at you, does not mean they're talking about you. And if they are, do you really want to hear it? You know, if they've separated themselves and it's what, just whatever. That's where we have to kind of check ourselves. Feel good enough about yourself and where you are that you're not going to, you know, life's too short. You do not know ever what's going on in somebody's mind, even if you've been married 50 years. She deserves a medal. Understand that we do this. When we do good, we accept. When we do well, we accept that responsibility. When I made an A on the test, it's because, by God, I studied hard. But when we don't, we tend to blame other people. Oh, I failed that test because of the teacher. It wasn't fair. It was, you know, whatever. Same student, difference. All right. And I think this was in Jaquan's presentation. Think about people you want to be with. Are they negative? I doubt it. If they are, call me for counseling. Or if you... call me for counseling, okay? We all want to be around people who are positive. We actually need it. Seriously, we need it. We need it to the point of being physically healthy. I'm not kidding when I say we need it. We really do. You know, if you are with somebody for an extended period of time who is a negative person, guess what that's going to do to you? So try all your tools first, but if they don't work, eventually you're going to find yourself sliding down, down, down too. Emotions are contagious. Now, that said, positive emotions are more contagious than negative emotions. A smile. You know, I think of going to London. Have any of you been to London? They don't smile a lot, right? They go on the train and they don't talk to anybody. They don't. Well, I had so many people in London come up to me and say, nice smile, nice smile. My daughters used to say if I didn't smile at everybody, we wouldn't meet all the weirdos. But we have had some interesting, a smile, that's the one thing besides a baby's cry and a whistle that a dog can respond to that is universally accepted nonverbal. A smile is a smile is a smile no matter where you are. It draws people to you. It helps you get what you want. It helps your mental health. It helps your psychological health. It helps your physical health. You know, a merry heart doeth good like medicine. That came from the Middle Ages. That's a quote from the Middle Ages. So, you know the message there, right? I know. Now, how to communicate with all right, here's just some specific examples. Thank you for that feedback. That's a good one, because how's anybody going to argue with that, right? So here's some suggestions. This is what's going to start a big conflict here, is when you counterattack. Okay, so, and also remember this, allow others to have a bad day. Everybody's got their own stuff. We might feel like, yeah, it's all about us. but it's really not. Everybody's got something going on, and I think we need to remember that, lest you judge them too quickly. And I'm not excusing negative and bad behavior. Shutting down, not healthy. That's like, it is healthy, yes, if a conflict is getting escalated for you to stop at that moment. But to use shutting down as a punishment, I'm never going to talk to them again. You know, that's not a healthy way to work. Oh, and using the person's name is very important too. All right. You know, it's funny that I see you don't ask complainers what's wrong, or you're going to hear a bunch of complaining. So there's some, you know, things you can do here. Very rarely, I would challenge you, most often this works when you counter the negative with the positive. If for no other reason, people probably just don't want to look so silly that in spite of you being positive, I'm still going to be negative. Well, what about the storm coming? Yeah, what about it? Okay, we'll make preparations, and that's that. It's not going to do you any good to keep complaining and complaining about. I mean, it really is not, is it? Except for you to be miserable. So try to counter the negative with the positive. Yes, but we've survived, and you can, even with the hurricane. Yes, but I know I've done everything to prep. How about you? Have you? You know, try to redirect the conversation, as opposed to just shutting down, turning around, and walking away. Modeling positive behavior. How much you talk about modeling with the children you work with. It's important, it's important, it's important. Heck yeah, it is. It's also important for adults to model it to other adults. And count your blessings. We can all find something to be positive about. So this is for you to do with you. If you're feeling like there's nothing good going on in your life, stop a minute and look. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And the emergency laughter list I just always talk about, because I think everybody should have one. An emergency laughter list are 5 things that will always make you laugh. This is a real big part of conflict resolution. Everybody's going to have access to this presentation, aren't they? Sarah, Austin?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll have this, and you'll be able to have this list as opposed to go to reviewing each point. But this is really important. This is really, really important. You notice the restate the feelings and validate. Validation is very important. I hear what you're saying. Doesn't mean I agree with you, but I hear you. So if I say I hear you, people feel better about treating you respectfully, and you'll have a greater chance of having a good, successful conflict resolution. All right, sorry about my mask. Okay, so, and supervisors, management, make sure you go back and revisit it. Because employees come to me and say, oh, yeah, they said they were going to do that. Not here, not at this organization, honestly. But I do hear from a lot of places. Well, they say they're going to do this, and nothing gets done. I see it a lot in the manufacturing sector. Ladder of inference is just a quick theory for how we judge people. There are 7 steps to judging people. Now, we go through these steps in our mind very quickly to form a judgment. And I think we already talked about forming judgments and how to question your initial judgment. Okay, question it. I'm not saying don't do it, because you will. You will judge others. How we interact with others depends on how we feel. That's very important. This is a very important point in conflict management. How you perceive things to be is not always as they are. Again, my classic example, if I have a couple coming to see me for counseling, the man will say something, the woman's like, you said la 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 la, and I'm sitting in the same room. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. And so perceptions are very, very important. So let's expect the best. You got nothing to lose, really. If you expect the best, you'll go at it with a better frame of mind. Might you not get the best? Yeah, but the chances are better if you expect the best that you're going to get the best. That's called self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's because our emotions show in our body language and a lot of other ways. Okay. I think we already talked about this. Yes, they are contagious. All right, now I'll end with this little vignette. Okay? So I think that speaks volumes. Okay? And I think I presented these to you, or it might have been in Jaquan's presentation. I just think these are two very good quotes. You know, you got to have something you can say to yourself to stay sane when conflict's rising.
I like the
Okay.
second one.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Doesn't say don't address it, but don't always look for the positive. Well, guess what? If you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be harder to see the positive. That's why self-care is really very, very important too. Okay. So can we do Q&A now? And then we can end with my summary of the presentation.
If you've had to deal with somebody in the past, like a conflict that has happened already, and you're kind of maybe harboring that, how do you let it go? How do you move forward to start communicating positive with that person?
That's self-talk. That is, all you can do about that is set yourself up for success in your brain. That's it. And I say that like it's real simple. There's 3 fixes to every problem. Everything. Number 1, self-care. And if you think about this, you'll realize it's true. Self-care, behavioral interventions. So where you'd be asking yourself, what can I do to fix this situation? What can I do with this storm coming? I can prep, I can, if we get a storm, I can call the insurance company, but what else are you going to do? That leaves step 3, cognitive interventions. If you can't change your world, change your mind. It kind of goes along with, not meaning to offend anybody, and you can put whatever you want to in the beginning of this, but I'm just being lazy now. God helps those who help themselves. That's the same thing that's about, all right? Except I don't really mean it in that way. It's because I don't want to offend anybody if you're a non-Christian. So from a psychological standpoint, do something. Don't just sit there and wallow in it. But there's only so much you can do. You can't get that house put back overnight. You can't undo those situations that happened when you were a child. You can't do it. You can't. So then you have to change how you think about it. That's where post-storm, let's use that as an example, where post-hurricane, they stick a microphone in somebody's face, which, how do you feel about that? Okay, I feel great. I always wanted an indoor swimming pool. How do you feel? I mean, I would never talk to but that's when people say, after the storm, they'll say, oh, but we're all okay. They might be crying, but they're going, oh, but we're all okay. What are they doing? They're trying to find the positive. They're trying to change how they look at that. And that is changed by no other way than self-talk. So make sure it's positive self-talk.
About yourself and about possibly that other person as well.
I mean, I don't want you to say live a pie-in-the-sky life and set yourself up for abuse if something like that's going on. But sure, what do you have to lose to be but don't set yourself up for continued mistreatment either.
I guess one of the things I've always appreciated about the Buddhist philosophy is you can't change the nature of fire. So if you know a person that's negative and confrontational, what you have to decide is how am I going to manage that if I have to engage, and set your positive expectations, but you can't change the nature of fire. And, you just have to realize that's the way a person is going to approach something, and you prepare yourself for it and don't buy into it. To me, that's what you've said.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. Something else from the
part of the fire.
something else that's part of Buddhist philosophy that's really, really neat too is not that every cloud has a silver lining, which I think this is like what Wendy's talking about too, but that everything that happens is a learning experience for us. That is not exactly how Buddha said it, and I think that's so true. So it's not like saying, gosh, if you're abused as a child, that's a good thing. That has a silver lining. No. But you did learn something from that. Now see, if you're talking about your personal relationships and your work relationships, it's kind of like they say you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. Well, you can't really choose your coworkers either. So if it's coworkers, I can't see any good in holding on to negative thinking, so much as what Wendy said is figure out how you can manage it. And please use a sense of humor. I mean in your head. It's not always appropriate. Gosh, I thought I silenced that, sorry. It's not always appropriate to use a sense of humor.
Can I use my husband again?
But go ahead.
He is, it's like living with Monk. The character, TV character, right? And he's already, when I get 3 words out of my mouth, has analyzed what I'm going to say, has thought about a million things to get him to where he's going to respond, and he can come up with the most negative reason not to do whatever it is. He's always going to be a no. So it took me a long time not to just get fighting mad, because he wouldn't, first of all, I never got the whole sentence out. Secondly, it's like, how do you know I want to do this? Can I just finish that conversation? And then finally, I just let him work through that process and tell me all the negatives and get it out of his system. And there are people here who do that. When I walk up to someone, you probably will recognize a few of them. They're always going to have a reason. First of all, they've already analyzed. We have a lot of smart people here. And so they've already figured out what the negatives are going to be, what the problems are going to be, and they're going to focus on that first. And so I always try to think about it as like, well, get on through that process. Now let's talk about what is it we need to do to overcome that. Because you want a problem solved and conflict resolution.
And see, that's Wendy's way of not reacting right away.
Right.
Not, if she's knowing the other, she's taking time to know the other person. Okay. Now I will say, but now you can't go up to somebody else and go, I'm going to just pick on you, okay? Because I know this isn't you. Well, she's always a negative person, okay? I'm all right. Then I guess we can try, we can smile, we can do all this stuff, but it just does not work. She's still, look at her, always a problem. Okay. Then to Wendy's point, what do? Then you let her, then go ahead and vent with limits to that venting, I would say.
You don't let them control the situation.
That's right. Set boundaries is what that's about. And a lot of times it takes 50 years of living with somebody. She probably figured that out a long time ago.
Your son has been around here for 30 years too, so I can.
But she didn't fix it in a year. That's getting to know the person and just accepting they're different, and okay, maybe they gotta do this first. Okay? Any other questions? You come up with some doozies. They're great questions.